Do you know the difference between a law, a rule, and a regulation? Well, I'm Jahan Kalantar. I'm an Australian lawyer, and I'm here to teach you about the difference in these three. Start with the most obvious one, laws. Laws are things that are created by Parliament or the government that pass through numerous stages before they become enforceable. This means they're usually debated in Parliament, they usually bring about some sort of outcome, and ultimately they're gazetted and written out in such a way as to be interpreted by courts. Laws can only be made by the government. That means that private parties cannot make any sort of laws, and you have to follow the laws, and ignorance of the law is no excuse. So now let's talk about rules. Rules don't necessarily need to be made by governments. Rules can be made by any organization or entity, and they can be about anything. For example, when we play sports, we all agree to a set of common behaviors. Those are known as the rules. There's usually penalties involved if you fail to follow the rules. And rules, if breached, often don't have the same consequences of breaching laws. Because when you breach a law, you usually open yourself up to a financial penalty or possibly a penalty against your person, such as imprisonment. But in a legal context, when you see something like the road rules, well, what does that actually mean? Road rules are the implementation or attempted implementation of the laws into action. For example, if a law is passed that seeks to limit the deaths on roads, one of the road rules might be, well, we don't want you to go beyond a certain speed. And the rules will give color to those laws. So for example, the rule might be that you have to drive this type of vehicle. You can't go beyond this speed. You can't do this. You can't do that. These rules, when made, generally do not go through the parliamentary process. They might be made by a certain entity or organization, and it gives a lens by which the law is observed. Similarly, those rules are open to interpretation. So if one of the rules is one can't wear a black shirt, the argument becomes, well, what is black? What is a shirt? That's where courts come in. The role of courts is to interpret the way that laws were set out, what they intended to achieve, what the law states as is written, and what other principles or precedents give color to that law. And if that hasn't confused it enough, I'm going to teach you about regulations. Regulations are a set of standards and procedures similar to rules that once again give light to laws. The best way to think about them is the rule book to a particular thing. And sometimes, particularly in my state, you might have two sets of regulations which ostensibly look after the same thing. All of this is just a colorful way of saying that it's complicated.